despite the fact that there's a wave of protectionism around the world, that shouldn't deter us from working towards that agreement. On the contrary, that should actually push us to do it further, because it's a great opportunity to trade among African nations. But also it means that it's a great opportunity to increase intra-regional trade, which is now at 15% of our total trade. And that agreement has the potential of increasing it massively. It's also a very good opportunity for African nations to build regional value chains. So for countries to band together, put their production capabilities, organize them and harmonize, and therefore allow them to be sort of stronger counterparts to the rest of the world when it comes to export promotion. So that was one key takeaway. Another important one, I think, was the fact that there's a lot of skepticism about the agreement, both within and outside Africa. Means that one, two things that need to be addressed. One is information, because a lot of the concerns that were raised about this agreement, a lot of them are based on misinformation. People aren't actually sure what the outcome will be, and that's a very fair reaction. People need to know how a massive agreement like that will affect their lives, and I think collectively African countries have been fairly bad at communicating that. But it also means that the devil's in the detail, as in for most things, and therefore some really good planning and very good protection for the most vulnerable actors, smallholder farmers, etc., will have to be put in place for us to maximize the value of this agreement. One of the main reasons that we have been failing to integrate continent-wise isn't just tariffs, which is what this agreement is looking at, but also there's a whole host of non-tariff barriers. Its borders are difficult to cross, and the rules change depending on the whim of the officers working there. Infrastructure across nations, sort of trans-regional networks, are often weak. And also we've inherited a lot of sort of, shall we say, economic systems from the colonial era that are pushing us to trade more with the world in basic commodities and natural resources, rather than collaborate intra-Africa, right? So one thing that I take away from this session a lot is, beyond looking at this agreement in its details, it's also very important to look at everything else that affects African trade, and because there's a lot of work to be done there. There's a lot of good work happening on the ground. There are great projects from small to large that are working on improving regional infrastructure, improving energy provision, giving people electricity, upgrading capacities and skills, getting countries to collaborate together on industrial projects and so on. So there's a lot of that happening, but that's definitely something that we need to see more of.